So now we're going to find some compositions, and we're going to use that information from the chart that we gave in the last video. Okay, so we want the sine pi over 3, but then we want to take the inverse sine of it. So we know we're going to get back to where we started from as long as we're within the restriction. So pi over 3, in this case, we've got to have x be between, I'll just write, x has to be between pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. But it is. Pi over 3 is in there, so we're all good. So that means this then is just going to equal pi over 3. Okay, so there's the answer, and that might be what you were thinking the answer was going to be. All right, now the next one. Well, we're at 2 pi over 3. Sometimes it's easier for me to visualize this with a little diagram. So 2 pi over 3, that's over here. I'm in the second quadrant. So I am not in the restriction. I'm not in this restriction right here that I need to be, okay? So I have to think, if I'm in the second quadrant, is sine positive or negative? Sine is positive in the second quadrant. So I need the matching one, the reflection or the reference angle from quadrant 1, because that's where sine's positive. Now, what for 2 pi over 3, so think about this being 2 pi over 3, then what's the reference angle? Oops, not drawn very well. What's the reference angle over here? Pi over 3. Okay? So I can use that, and I can say, if you want me to write this, I can. Sine, inverse sine of sine pi over 3 is going to be the same thing, okay? Because those two signs are equal. Sine of 2 pi over 3 is equal to the sine of pi over 3. And so that's just going to be then pi over 3, because that was the first one we did. Okay. Now we're going to go cosine 2 pi over 3. So where's 2 pi over 3? Well, it's over here. Can I have the cosine be in there? Yes, it has to be between 0 and pi. So between 0 and pi, and I'm good. So this is just going to equal 2 pi over 3. Now, at this point, if you're saying, wait, why aren't you writing cosine? Well, remember, I'm doing the cosine, and then I'm doing the inverse cosine. So that gets me back to the angle. Okay? All right. So those are those two. And then I've got one more here. Well, cosine of negative pi over 3, that is not between 0 and pi. Negative pi over 3 is over here, right? Okay. Now, the cosine of that, I'm in the fourth quadrant, right? So cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant. So I need to use the angle over here, and those are not drawn accurately. Okay, it's more like a pi over 6. Pi over 3 would be more like up here and down here. Okay, let me erase. I'm going to erase a little bit. That one's out. That. Okay, there. That's more like a negative pi over 3. And then here's the pi over 3. Now see, pi over 3, the cosine for pi over 3 is positive, just like the cosine of negative pi over 3 is positive. In fact, you could use that one identity we have that says the cosine of negative t, because cosine is an even function, is equal to the cosine of t. I didn't think to use that till just now, but I could write that as the cosine of pi over 3. That's another way to look at it. Okay. So then we're back to what we had before. So the inverse cosine, the answer is just going to be pi over 3. Okay, so you have to do a little bit of thinking. I always draw them out. That helps me see it visually. But kind of handy to use this even function idea that we could write it that way.